All right, the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Pillion. Senator McPike.
Here.
Senator Eben.
Here.
Senator Marsden.
Here.
Senator Servo.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tweedy. Well, welcome to the third General Government Subcommittee of the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee. We have a sign-up sheet up here. And first on our sheet, we had Senator Hackworth with Senate Bill 473. After discussions with the patron, that bill's going to go by for the day. Senator Marsden moves, McPike moves by for the day. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? No. So the bill's by for the day. Second on the list is Boysko 370 and 77. What would you like to do first, Senator Boysko? Okay.
Find pay equity between men and women. This bill directs employers to prohibit seeking wage or salary history for prospective employees. It also would require for public disclosure wage salary or wage salary ranges for positions in postings for jobs, promotions, transfers, and other employments. This is the 8th year I've carried this bill. We got it through the Senate last year, and hoping that we can pass this year. On average, women employed in the United States lose a combined total of nearly $1.6 trillion every year due to the wage gap, and there are numerous women who are the heads of their household. I worked with the National Women's Law Center on this bill over the past decade, and I hope that you all will work with me to get this moved forward.
Hey, Senator, I think we're primarily here to vet the fiscal impact of the bill. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, absolutely. So I have a budget amendment for $50,000 that I put in. It said that the Department of Labor and Industry anticipates an indeterminate increase in caseloads. If the bill generates significant numbers of complaints, the department may need to hire staff in the future. Employees who violate this bill would be subject to a $1,000 civil penalty for initial violations, $2,000 for a second, $4,000 for subsequent. The revenues from these fines would be deposited into the literary fund, but because the number of violations can't be predicted, the fiscal impact is indeterminate. So there is no fiscal impact that
Senator, I think there was a concern that from the Department of Labor that they would have to administer and enforce provisions of the bill, which created an impact. And I think there was a thought that if we removed Dolly's enforcement language, that might avoid any kind of fiscal impact. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, we've had an equal pay bill on law on the books since 1973. This really just clarifies what a company can do and what they can't do. I think of this as really providing guardrails, but it is the will of the committee to decide what you want to do.
All right. Do we have any kind of an amendment or sub prepared on that? No, we don't. So to make that change, let's see. We would have to strike subsection F, I think, right? Some other technical stuff. Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we strike subsection F in concept so that the bill doesn't have a fiscal impact.
All righty.
Okay. Any other discussion about that? Okay. All those in favor? What?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so it would still be illegal, it just, how would it be enforced? What would someone do if there was a violation, if we were to strike subsection F?
Mr. Kinman, you ever thought about that?
I can do it.
Go ahead, April.
Mr. Chair, Senator Eben, I think the language in the bill is actually permissive, so it doesn't already require it. So I think it just removes the fact that they would be conducting the investigation. I think it's taking that out completely. I think the way it's already drafted, it's a may versus a shall. Unless Stephen can correct me if I'm incorrect about that.
Oh, there's still a cause of action.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator Eben, I was going to say, the Dolly's piece is separate than the actual private cause of action that a person could do. So there's at least a court action you can take.
Yeah, I think under subsection E, there's a private cause of action. And if anybody got retaliated against based on a violation or a violation of this, there'd be a separate cause of action, the employee retaliation statute that Delegate Delaney passed in 2020, I know.
Thank you.
Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Okay, otherwise, good. It's been moved that we recommend the bill for reporting. Any other discussion? Clerk will open the roll. Roll, or you just call it? You call it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
All in favor of reporting and amending it as,
Can we just do it orally and see if anybody
Sure.
objects? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Reports recommended reporting unanimously. Senator Boysko, you got 77, which I think is personal use of campaign funds.
That is correct. All you need to think of is George Santos, just about everything that he did in his campaign violations at the federal level would have been legal here in Virginia had he been in the General Assembly. This is a bill that would set some parameters on what we can spend our funds on, which really have to be dealing with either our own elections or dealing as elected officials. So no more going to a Caribbean cruise for fun, basically. And we did add from child care to dependent care in privileges and elections because there are some people who are responsible for caring for their elderly family members. And so it just gives a little bit more flexibility for that person who wants to run for office or who is in office who could not do so if their loved one didn't have somebody taking care of them.
Senator, I think there was a little bit of concern about that change when we talked about it offline, but other than that, the only fiscal impact of the bill is a Woodrum amendment, which is not likely to be used.
Correct.
But in any event, I think in my discussions, the thought was that we leave it as child care and recommend it that way. Does that be fine with you?
I would prefer that it stays dependent care, but if that is the will of the body, I will defer to you all.
Okay. Does anybody else have an opinion?
Mr. Chairman, clearly the details are going to have to be worked out by the, by the folks who are going to be giving people the advisory notices. But there is a provision here for emergency regulations to get us started, and they'll have to be worked on over time. To get this right. It's going to be a bit of a journey, just like the ethics, commission was. So.
Okay, so we're just going to leave it as dependent care or child care.
And Mr. Chair, the House cognate is dependent care. Just that would be exactly the same if we leave it as dependent care.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we add it, go back to child care.
It would just mean we recommend reporting without amendments.
Recommend reporting without the amendments.
Okay. Is there a second for that? Second. Okay. Is there any further discussion about that? All those in favor? Actually, we wouldn't make an amendment. So at this point, I guess what we would do is recommend the bill to be reported without amendments.
I would so move.
Is there a second for that? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed? No. Okay. Thank you, Senator Boysko. Thank you. That's it
Thank
for
you all. You have a good morning.
Madam Uber Chair, I see you're here. Why don't you come on up? You don't have to sign any list.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the
What do
committee.
you got here?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, what you have before you is Senate Bill 623,
623.
and it is the collective bargaining by firefighters and emergency medical service providers. And I do believe you have a substitute?
Is there a substitute? I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just go on and give you the
Yeah,
essence of the bill. This bill authorized firefighters and emergency medical services providers employed by a political subdivision of the Commonwealth to engage in collective bargaining through labor organizations or other designated representatives. The bill provides for the appointment of a 3-member board of arbitration regarding any dispute arising between or employers and firefighters and emergency services. Under the bill, determination made by such board or arbitration are final on a disputed issue and are binding on the parties involved. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, the reason why I'm before you with this bill this year is because ever since I've been here in the legislature, this bill has come before this body or a body, and it has been repeatedly either carried over or just not passed. And I think it's time for us to move forward with this, and I understand that this may present a problem with VRS, but I'd like finally for us to be able to do something in terms of collective bargaining for our firefighters and emergency service personnel. I understand that that is an issue, and that's the reason why I've talked to several parties, and I think we can probably look at ways that we might be able to do something to move forward in providing these collective bargaining for our firefighters and emergency service personnel because they're long overdue. And so I'm looking forward to an opportunity for us to have more discussion to see what we can do to try to continue to move forward with this legislation. I'm not giving up, Mr. Chairman, just like with the casino bill that took me 22 years. I'm here for as long
Okay.
as it takes.
Okay, well, Madam Chairman, I know we have a lot of different options we can do on this, including looking at it over the interim, trying to figure out if there's a way to get past this VRS problem. Is that something you'd be willing to consider, that we carry it over till next session while we look at the VRS and put some language in the budget to have?
Whatever it takes to move this legislation forward, I'm
Okay.
here until it happens.
Okay, got it. And Madam Chairman, I guess there's also some concern about whether there's a board that's contemplated by this, but there's no funding that's been designated in any way to fund the board. Is that right?
I understand that to be true. I'm
Okay.
still not going to leave this
Okay.
piece of legislation until something's done.
Got it.
Year after year, I'll continue to
Your
come back.
resolve is clear.
All right.
Okay.
Question. Mr. Chairman.
Marsden?
Senator Lucas, in other off years when this has not passed or been passed over and what have you, have they looked at this VRS situation?
To my understanding, they have not, but I understand now that there's an opportunity to do that. And so maybe this might be the vehicle to get us to where we need to be.
Okay.
So it hasn't happened before, so maybe now we can do it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, that's
And I would like
very
to defer
clarifying.
I'd like to defer to finance staff to make sure that I'm accurate in that statement.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Senator Lucas, yes. I mean, I think part of the discussion was maybe directing, carrying over the bill, and then directing like this subcommittee to, in the interim period, to review the issues and actually work with VRS and JLARC with assistance to figure out all the issues and how you can move it forward.
Thank you for that clarification. And as I said before, I'll come back time and time again until we get to where we need to be. Thank you. You all have a good day.
I move that we carry the bill over and that this subcommittee reviews the VRS implications in the off-season. And Madam Chair's determination to get something done here is clear, and we'll hopefully bring that to you for next time around.
I appreciate your understanding, consideration, and moving it forward. Thank you.
Is there a second for that? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We carry the bill over and we meet in the off session to figure out the details of this to get it done. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, that'll be recommended in full committee. Next up, we have Hashmi, 238.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee. I think there is an amendment.
Is there a substitute?
Mr. Chairman, there is a substitute. It's getting posted online right now.
It's been moved and seconded, the sub be adopted, so it can be before us. All those in favor say aye. 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 Anybody opposed? No. Okay, Senator, we don't have, do we have any paper
Here it is.
copies? Oh, it's in
Well, we have
of the
the,
sub?
I can explain it.
Okay. Mr. Kinnaman, why don't you, or do you want Mr. Kinnaman to explain the sub? Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the substitute would change subsection B in the bill, and the end of that subsection would now read, drugs and contraceptive devices in accordance with 38.2-3442 and 38.2-3438, including for over-the-counter use, and it also strikes the last subsection in the bill.
Okay, what does that do? Mr. Kinnaman?
Mr. Chairman, it refers to a definitional section referring to federal market reform coverage, and obviously adds including over-the-counter use. And then the final subsection previously said, the provisions of this section shall be applicable to contracts, policies, or plans delivered, issued for delivery, or renewed in the Commonwealth on or after July 1, 1997. It was stricken.
Okay, what's the practical effect? Senator Hashmi, you want to explain, or Mr. Kinnaman to explain?
Sure, thank you. So the reference to the parts of the code just clarifies which drugs and contraceptive devices are approved by the federal government, and also includes over-the-counter use, as we heard. And then striking the section E just was not necessary, so that was taken out by our Virginia Association of Health Plans in coordination with the Bureau of Insurance at the SEC.
Okay, so Senator, so what this bill does, I think, is it requires the state healthcare plan to provide coverage for contraceptive devices, right?
Well, really what the bill does is puts us in alignment with the federal government now, and it puts it into Virginia code. It's not a new requirement in essence, but it is taking the popular elements of the existing federal law and placing it into the Virginia code. And it's really to address the issues of cost barriers that impact many, many individuals seeking contraceptive care. So it eliminates copays, reimbursement requirements, cost sharing, delays in coverage. And that is something that the ACA already does, and this is an effort to put the Virginia plan in the same situation as the federal.
Okay, but in order to get it in line with the federal, basically it provides access to contraceptive devices. Those are the additional things that weren't covered. Is that a fair? And I understand you're saying it eliminates copays and a few other things, but I guess under the existing policy, only contraceptive medication is covered, but not anything else. Is that right?
I believe that's correct, Mr. Chair, and contraceptive devices would be anything that's approved as a contraceptive by the FDA.
Right. And the changes you just made were to just clarify that some, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this doesn't have any impact on any other health plans besides the state health care plan, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Senator Pillion.
Did we,
Microphone.
yeah. Mr. Chairman, Senator Hashmi, we had talked about this. Did you get any information on morning after? Is that included in this bill? Or is it just contraception?
It is contraception, and I think you and I were talking about medicated abortion, and that pill is classified, to my best understanding, by the FDA, is classified as an abortion pill, not as a contraception pill. But the morning after is a different drug,
before
and that's
implementation.
classified as contraception.
Okay.
And so, Mr. Chair, just to address fiscal impact, the fiscal impact on the state health plan would seems to be significant according to the fiscal impact statement. But however, as Mr. Tweedy has explained to me, this is spread out over many years, and so it is not an immediate and direct impact on our budget.
All right. Committee have any other questions? All right. Hold on a second. One second, Senator Hashmi. Make your motion. All right, Senator Hashmi. Senator McPike, you got a motion? Recommend reporting.
Second.
As amended. Is there any further discussion about that? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Thank you. Senator Hashmi, I think that's it for you, right?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Senator Perry, you're up next. Senator Perry, you got a FOIA victim bill, right?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. So this is Senate Bill 215. The bill takes what's the current FOIA law, primarily as it relates to allowing victims or relatives of victims, if the victim is deceased or if the victim is a minor, to request their essentially some information from the criminal file from which they were a victim. It has the same protections that have always been in place or for some period of time have been in place related to ongoing cases and things like that to protect law enforcement. All this bill does is permit a victim who lives out of state, who's not a resident of the Commonwealth, to go ahead and obtain their file from law enforcement. I've seen this in particular in cases where I have stalking victims and things like that who actually leave the state to try to escape the person who is abusing them. And this just permits them to be able to do that. I understand this is the budget committee, so the fiscal impact is indeterminate. I will tell the members of this committee I had extensive conversations with the Virginia Sheriff's Association, Stacey Kincaid, who's the sheriff of Fairfax, about this bill. They did have concerns about what the implications would be, but ultimately decided this is likely to be a very small number of requests that they would get. Small caveat, if there's an attorney who is engaged solely in post-conviction proceedings, they can also request it from out of state. I also expect that to be a very, very small number of people. But the fiscal impact is indeterminate at this time.
Right. So, Senator Perry, right now, only Virginia residents are allowed to make FOIA requests, right?
That's correct.
Right. And we passed this other provision, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, allowing victims to request records. But if you're an out-of-state victim, you can't make a request because of the state resident policy, right?
That's correct.
And this just creates a small exception for out-of-state crime victims or their families if they're dead.
That's correct.
Okay. That's basically what the bill does. Senator Evans?
I was just going to make a motion if you're ready for one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd move to recommend reporting.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Show unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up I got Senator Rome, and then Williams Graves is last on the list if she's out there. Rome, you've got 324, which is...
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, there's an
Okay.
amendment.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm sorry. Sorry, Senator. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair, the amendments are technical in nature. They would replicate the language used on line 55, cost incurred in accessing, duplicating, supplying, or searching for, on lines 59 and 60, which only states accessing or searching for. This amendment only seeks to match the language in all 3 lines to ensure that the language is consistent throughout the bill.
Okay, hold on. I'm just trying to get this version in front of me. It's 324. How this is organized here. Yeah, I don't know. What order are they in? Are they in name order in here? Oh. Yeah, name. Okay. Sorry, I keep looking in number order.
Yes, just two after the Perry bill.
I
Could
got
you,
it.
could you repeat the line amendments again?
Yeah,
I-
sure.
It's very hard to hear you as well, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
All right, I'll speak up for the committee here. So they would replicate the language used on line 55, which is cost incurred in accessing, duplicating, supplying.
Sorry, Senator, so what are you amending and where?
On line 55, the language that is used there that says cost incurred in accessing, duplicating, supplying, or
That's not
searching
what-
for.
That's not what our copy
Wait.
is. Our line 55 doesn't say that.
Mr. Chairman,
We got the introduced here. Hold on a second. We also have a.
Mr. Chairman, the line amendments are made to the substitute version of the bill on lines 59, 60, and 61. After the word accessing, we are putting in duplicating and supplying to reflect the same language on line 55.
Yeah, Mr. Kinman, I don't think we have the copy of the sub in our book. That's the problem.
So I've got it here. Do you want?
Yeah, Senator, why don't we put it by so we know what we're doing first and get copies of your bill in front of us. Sorry, take up Senator Favola in the meantime. Or is Williams Graves here? Nope. Okay. All right, Senator Favola, what do you got?
Good morning, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My bill is Senate Bill 91, and it provides for paid sick leave to agency-directed home health workers. So agencies that are on contract with our Medicaid plan to provide home care services to our Medicaid recipients would be required to provide sick leave. And lines 39 to 43 tell you exactly how the sick leave would be calculated. There is a fiscal impact, but of course we would be drawing down Medicaid funds as well. My interest in putting this bill in is not only because I believe it is the right thing to do, and those serving our most vulnerable should be able to take sick leave when they're sick, but we passed a similar measure for consumer-directed home health workers, I think it was 2 years ago. So I was trying to cover the agency-directed with this bill. So regardless of whether a consumer directly hired you or an agency sent you to provide that care, if you're a home health care worker, you would be granted sick leave. That's the bill.
Thank you, Senator. So I think we're looking at what, a $14.5 million fiscal impact over the biennium?
Over the biennium, yes, that's correct. But we're also drawing down about 16 million with non-general funds. So
Right, see that.
I think that's an
Senator
important
Marsden, it's right here.
distinction.
I'm sorry, how much are we drawing down?
You're drawing down 7.9 million in fiscal year 25 non-general and about 9 million in fiscal year 26 non-general.
Yeah. Right here.
So that's about 16 million,
right here.
maybe almost 17 million. Didn't add it that quickly.
It's the other side of your sheet.
Oh, there it is, okay.
Okay. Senator, right now, I think there's a little bit of concern about the amount of
Non-general.
uncertainty in our budget and the size of this request. And there's a thought we need to sort of see where the revenue goes over the next 12 months before we decide to add this to the kitty. Does anybody else have any other thoughts about it?
No. Carry over.
Right, it's a challenge on a lot of things this session.
It is, I move to carry over.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move to carry the bill over.
Is there a second for that? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we recommend the full committee to carry the bill over. Any further discussion, Senator Favola?
I'll be back next year.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, we don't have subs yet for Rome, I don't think. Okay, so Williams Graves, you're up while we wait for Doug at Rome's copies to catch up.
Senator Rome?
Oh my God, I'm sorry. Sorry, Danica.
Old habits.
Yeah, old habits die hard. Okay. Williams Graves, what do you have?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. We're asking you to take a look at the financial impact, but also at the validity of Senate Bill 520, which is a bill for making repetitive motion injuries compensable under Virginia's workers' compensation law. Do you need an overview of the bill, or how would you like me to proceed?
Well, we're mainly focused on the fiscal impact, and I think part of the concern here is that the repetitive stress injuries, I know we're one of only a few states that doesn't cover that. But
We're the only one.
the only one.
We're the only one.
Right.
Yeah.
Repetitive stress injuries are some of the most common care injuries that occur in workers' compensation situations, which means there's a lot of claims that could arise from making the policy, which have an impact on our workers' comp coverage and rates and everything.
And I understand that, and with all due respect, I think that when staff did the FISC on this, they went worst case scenario. And I think that if 49 other states have found a way to pay for this, we should find a way to do it as well. Our workers, they give their bodies as their tool, as their commodity, and I just think that we need to do better with them.
Right. And so, I think, where's the bill in here? So, Senator, I think one of the issues that was raised is that the average claim on one of these is about $53,000 when they're issued, according to the Department of Human Resource Management, over a 14-year period. And, if you were to assume that those would then be covered, we'd be looking at, what, 5-6 million a year or something like that. I mean, millions of dollars per year in additional claims. And a lot of people don't file because they know they don't have a claim. They know it's not covered today. And so if we were to open up coverage, you'd get even more claims. Do you have any concerns about that?
I have concerns about the workers who, put buildings together and who go to work every day and do the same thing every single day. We have the luxury of working in very nice offices, sitting in very nice chairs, in air conditioning and in heat. And a lot of those people who are filing those claims have legitimate claims because of the injuries that they sustained. So I have concerns about the workers. In the FISC, they estimate the average cost on accepted claims was approximately $38,000, which incurred the estimate for, based on that number, was like $20 million. But again, my concern is for the workers, and 49 other states have found a way to pay for this. And yet Virginia continues to make excuses as to why we can't.
Right. And Senator, I think a lot of us share that concern. I think my wife has carpal tunnel, which is a repetitive stress injury from being at a keyboard all day. So a lot of us have to do. I think the concern is in the cost and how we're going to pay for it in the short term with a tight budget. Is there any other discussion from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Williams Graves, does, the cost per claim, it says here that 71% are denied, but it's the same cost for the claim?
I'm not sure, to be very honest with you. If 71% of the claims are denied, then that means that 29% of them are actually paid out. So if we're looking at, based on the information that is in the FISC, where the fiscal impact statement example has given $38,000 per claim, then only a percentage of this $20 million would then be a reasonable number.
Mr. Chairman, but
Senator Marsden.
Then again, there would be a lot of administrative work that would go into, evaluating, these claims, and 71% of them being denied. There would still be a cost other than the award for compensation to the person, there would be costs incurred. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I would simply say, I would kind of liken it to the example of it's better that 100 guilty people go free than one innocent man be convicted. I think that it's better that we have 30% of our claims that are actually claims be honored than focusing on the 71% of claims that are denied.
Okay, is there any further discussion from the committee? Okay, is there a motion?
Move to carry over.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded, it'll be carried over until the next session when we further investigate the fiscal impact of this on the state. Is there any further discussion? All those in? Anything else you want to say?
I was just going to say thank you.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Shut unanimous. Thank you, Senator.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'll be back with Senator Favola.
Okay, we have a sub yet? Okay. Thanks. All right, Senator Rome. All right, now we got the right sub in front of us. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to repeat one more time what we're working on.
Okay.
So the amendments would replicate the language used on line 55. That language is cost incurred in accessing, duplicating, supplying, or searching for. And then we put that on lines 59 and 60, which right now only state accessing or searching for. So again, this is a technical amendment. It's just to make sure that the language matches up.
I got it. So Senator Rome has moved to conform line 59, line 55. I'm sorry, Senator Rome hasn't moved that. Senator McPike has moved. Senator Marsden seconds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Okay, Senator.
All right.
Now we can talk about your bill.
All right, let's talk about the money. So the substitute version of this, the fiscal impact that you got for the localities and everything, we have knocked that down to 1/96th of what it would have been, okay? So how did that happen? The original bill allowed for 2 free hours 4 times a month for a FOIA request, which basically comes out over the year to 96 hours. We've knocked that down to 1 hour on your first request, 1 time in a calendar year. So for some of the concerns that were raised, this has dramatically knocked that down. Second part, we have raised the fee cap from $33, which is what Colorado's currently is, there's $33.58, to $40, which is what theirs is likely to be on July 1st. So even that is a compromise concession, whatever. Next part, additionally, we add an exemption to the judicial review process for attorneys of school boards, counties, cities, towns, and the Office of Attorney General. So you don't even have to go to court to get that part. The only part where you have to go to court for is if you have another salaried employee who you're saying they can only do this if it's going to take more than $40 per hour for them to do it. And if they're getting paid $40 per hour or more, I mean, that's I would be asking at that point, do you have a lower paid person who is capable of fulfilling the search? So these changes significantly reduce any potential fiscal impact in the bill. And finally, Mr. Chair, I'm going to note in the enactment clause on this, we put study language in there. Why? This bill has already been studied. This bill was a product of the FOIA Advisory Council as introduced. We've amended this via what happened in general laws. At the same time, there was still a request for us to take the House bill, slap it on this thing as an enactment clause in order to move that forward. That's why we have put a 1-year sunset date on the language that's in front of you right now. And that year, you'll be able to assess what the actual fiscal impacts were to the Commonwealth, to agencies, anything like that, or to state or to local governments. And at the same time, that 1 year, that allows the study provision here to go forward, while at the same time, with the understanding that we got 1 year, the study has to get done and has to come back, and then yours truly will introduce legislation based on that. So this is a compromise on a compromise on a compromise on a compromise. I have worked this thing for 7 years. I think it's ready for prime time, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator. So before you got here, I used to be the FOIA champion, and you kind of have lapped me about 10 times. With the work you've tried to do with FOIA since you got here, so.
I agree, Mr. Chairman.
And Senator, you know, your bill got the dreaded indeterminate impact on it, which, on the original introduced one, I guess we don't have a revised FIS on the amended bill yet, right? Because it hasn't caught up with your amendments,
So,
right?
Mr. Chair, I would say if you take indeterminate and you divide it by 96, that's what our new one is.
Okay. So Senator, notwithstanding that, your bill would apply to every single FOIA request, whether it's to the localities or to the state, right?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. At the same time, because the state here didn't seem to require a budget amendment for it when we got the FIS back on it, that's where I think the indeterminate part came in. And in fact, when we were looking at the localities part on it, most of the small towns, for example, said we don't really get that many of it, and so we had a lot of zeros coming across the board from them. The only real major concern that we were coming was from City of Richmond, and all these amendments that I've made, I think that takes care of that.
Right. Although I know that there's some localities that some of us represent who feel like FOIA has been weaponized against some of our, for example, our school boards and stuff. But,
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll
Yeah.
also tell you I represent the second largest locality in Virginia, and which you did previously, and which Senator McPike currently does. And I will tell you that the weaponization here was when the Prince William County school system tried to assess a $8,800 request to one of my constituents in Manassas to watch a video of her autistic daughter being dragged off the bus by two adults. That was an abuse of the system. That's what I'm seeking to remedy, and I'm
Right.
seeking to remedy in the harshest terms possible with a very compromised bill.
right. You have a couple of people I think Senator McPike and I are familiar with that like to send a lot of requests to the school board. There's also some serial filers in Fairfax as well.
Yep, and Mr. Chairman, the reduction on the number of free time and stuff, that was the concession to deal with people who file abusive FOIA fees to our FOIA request and the serial filer who you're speaking of. This one request at least allows the average person who's just trying to get something that's simple, an email that can be produced in an hour, to be able to get it as just straight up public service from their local government.
Okay. And Senator, well, and appreciate your diligence on that. I mean, I just think there was a little bit of a concern about the fact that this will impact every single FOIA request in the state, and I don't think there's we're obviously operating in a tight budget environment. I don't think there's a budget amendment on this either, right?
So, Mr. Chairman, I would tell the subcommittee here that there was no budget amendment because there was none requested in the fiscal impact statement in the first place. It didn't say that we needed a budget amendment, so therefore we did not file one.
Okay. So I think we had a sub that was prepared. Is that right? Mr. Kinderman, did you prepare something?
Mr. Chairman, yes, the substitute would make the bill a Section 1 bill and would just take the third enactment regarding the study and work group, and that's all.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, if that was the case here, my ask is on this, because this product is already the product of a study. This is what we've done. This is, Senator Locke voted for it, on the FOIA Advisory Council and everything. My request on this then is that if we're going to take what is basically the third enactment clause and push that up to make the rest of the bill go into effect July 1 of 2025, this way we at least have the impetus and the initiative here in the General Assembly to say, hey, this is not something we're just going to pass the buck on. This is going to go into effect unless the General Assembly decides otherwise, in the meantime. This will require us to get something done in the next year instead of just punting on it, Mr. Chairman.
Right. But, Senator, wouldn't you agree that if this study that your bill has going on over the next 12 months proves out to be that this is okay, that we could vote this through again in July 1 of 2025? So in other words, for example, we could validate the policy this year, have a reenactment clause so that we could vote again next year if the study bears it out.
Mr. Chair, if you wanted to put a reenactment clause on everything that's not the study right now, then, I mean, I wouldn't be happy with it, but I would understand it as a means to go forward. But at the very least, it would be a directive to the rest of this body that, hey, this is something where we at least consider the policies here, that are in front of us serious enough to warrant further consideration on it. And this way, we're not just doing the study. We have the rest of the bill that I can then reintroduce next year if, anything goes wrong with the study process.
Okay, so I think in order to do that, instead of adopting Mr. Kinderman's substitute, we would just need to have a motion to amend section, or line 144 to a reenactment clause and leave the rest of the bill intact, I think, right? So is there a motion to do that?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We make the amendment on line 142, to make that a reenactment clause instead of a expiration clause. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Okay, Senator McPike moves, Senator Marsden seconds that we recommend the bill for reporting as amended to the full committee. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Nobody's opposed. Okay. Thank you, Senator. So next up, we have either my bill or Pillion's bill. Bagby had a bill. Bagby's got two bills. He's not coming, I don't think. I told him I'd take care of his bills for him. So why don't we do mine really quick? Somebody want to take over really quick? Yeah, Dave's probably your next senior, right? Steal from your mic.
All right.
What number is
Senator
mine?
Shervo, what's the number of your bill?
507.
What page? What page is that on?
21 of the handout.
21. All right.
21,
This
okay.
is going me crazy.
Yeah, turn that ringer on.
I thought I had.
Okay, so Senate Bill 507 is a sick leave bill that I carried last year, and I think the year before. It basically applies, it says that employers are required to provide sick leave to grocery store workers and healthcare workers. The idea was to cover people that were on the front lines during the pandemic who really didn't have a choice as to whether they could work or not, to give them the incentive not to have to come to work sick and continue to spread illness while they're in contact with the public. The bill has a fiscal impact of $429,000 this year and $1 million next year, and due to mainly monitoring costs and then Medicaid expenses, and then we have some state-run hospitals that it applies to. Talked with staff about it, and they have concerns about finding $1.4 million, and my request to the committee would be to carry the bill over to the next session and study it in the interim. In other words, committing suicide.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for Senator Shervo to commit suicide on his bill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, it's unanimous.
All right, sorry. So, just remember what I did to my own bill. Next up, Senator Pillion, Senator Aird's not here yet. She has a bill that's similar to yours. And so I guess we'll do Senator Eben. Sorry, Eben has one too. Maybe two? Do you have two bills?
Yeah, I have two bills, sir.
Let's do your one that's with Bagby's.
That would be Senate Bill 382 on unemployment compensation.
Yeah, let me just sort of explain where we are on that. So, Senator, let me make sure I get this straight. So, Senator Bagby's 536 is similar to Senator Eben's 382. They're kind of like different approaches to the same problem. They both have to do with overpayments of unemployment benefits that were made without the fault of the worker. And Senator Bagby's approach has to do with, anyways, there's some slight differences. Let me just put it that way. I think Senator Evans' approach has less fiscal impacts than Senator Bagby's approach. They both, in theory, could both be adopted at the same time, but given that Bagby's has much higher significant medical fiscal impacts, I think the idea was to first roll Bagby's into Evans and then talk about Evans. And I talked with Senator Bagby about that, and he understands that might happen, and he's not here. So it's
Is
moved.
that Senate Bill 536 that we're rolling in?
Yeah, so the move would be to incorporate, the motion would be to incorporate 536 into 382. It's been moved by Senator Pike, second by Marsden. Do we do that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. So that leaves Senator Eben's bill in front of us, which is 382. Senator, why don't you explain 382 now?
Sure. As amended, this bill would establish a 5-year statute of limitations on collection of non-fraudulent overpayments from the VEC, and it would also require the VEC to discontinue collection activities on overpayments when a claimant dies or declares bankruptcy. It was recommended by the Commission on Unemployment Compensation, and we took some amendments from the VEC itself, changing it from the original statute of limitations to 3 years to make it 5 years. There's a lot of good reasons for doing this beyond just fairness to the claimant who received money that they didn't collect with any ill intent or fraudulent activity. It makes it easier for the VEC to maintain accurate their books, and under current law, VEC may discharge overpayments, whether non-fraudulent or fraudulent, after 7 years with good cause, which is undefined in current law. So this brings some specificity and closure to people who receive a overpayment, and has the VEC have an adequate amount of time to recollect that money.
Right, I think part of the issue with Senator Bagby's was his used like an equitable standard, and yours uses a good cause standard, which I think is a little bit more defined in the law, at least to my knowledge. But are there any questions for Senator Evan? Okay, so the bill as stands, I don't think it has an impact at this point in this biennium. So is there a motion on this bill? Second. It's been moved by Senator McPike, seconded by Senator Pillion, that we recommend this bill for reporting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Nobody's opposed. Okay, Senator Edmund.
My other bill, I don't see on the subcommittee agenda that's presented to us. Is that just in full committee, or? The other bill was
I don't see them on
a combined sewer overflow bill, 372. Is that
here.
before full?
That's not this sub.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Thank
not
you.
sure it's this sub. Yeah. Okay. So where's Senator Aird? Oh, you have one here? Oh, that's right, you do.
What page is that, Chair? We just rolled the one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, let's do Senator Bagby's other bill really quick. So Senator Bagby had another bill, 542, and 542, we'll take that up now. Senate Bill 542 amends the Unemployment Compensation Act's labor dispute qualification to provide that a lockout by the employer shall not constitute a labor dispute, and that locked out employees who are otherwise eligible shall receive benefits unless they meet certain conditions. And it came back with an indeterminate fiscal impact, but I think there's not much concern about it because we don't have a lot of lockouts in Virginia. They occur very infrequently. I can't remember one, but I remember there was one in like the last 5 years, I think it was pointed out to me. But so the fiscal impact is pretty minimal by this. And the thought is we could recommend this for reporting to the full committee unless the committee has different point of views. Anybody have any thoughts?
Second.
No. Okay. Senator McPike moves. Senator Eben seconds that we recommend 542 for reporting to the full committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Okay, Senator Pillion's a no. Make sure you note that for the record. All right, so then we got McPike, who's got, oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This one's complicated.
Senate Bill 593 on page 16 of your docket. And I do have a substitute, Mr. Chairman. That basically
Is that in the book or?
lifts the cap. It should be, yes, it is in the book. The substitute is not in the book. But Mr. Chairman, I'll walk. The basics are pretty simple. What it does is it does lift the cap of PTSD, but it does provide a cap of for anxiety disorders and depressive disorders for the maximum of 104 weeks. And so that was a part of the agreement between insurance companies as others, is how the problem was, PTSD is much longer than the initial term, but providing a cap on the anxiety and depressive disorders was sort of the agreement. And I so move the substitute, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We adopt the substitute. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So what are we're basically taking your sub PTSD from a 1-year coverage to 4 years, and other depressive disorders from 1 year to 2 years?
Mr. Chairman, the anxiety and depressive orders would be 2 years. The cap on PTSD is lifted in the substitute and agreement with others.
Okay, so it's completely lifted.
That's correct.
Okay. We don't have a fiscal impact for that, right? A lot bigger. Over multiple biennia, I guess, would be the answer, right? Mr. Tweedy?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, since this was kind of added a few years ago, if you look at the annual workers' compensation report that DHRM does, the actuary who estimates the premiums, under the current law, it costs, now granted this would be split between GF and NGF because the agencies pay it, but it's about $220,000 a year is currently being carried for the PTSD for that part of it.
It's capped, right?
Sorry, how much a year?
It's about $220,000.
Per year?
Mhm, yes,
And that's existing, Mr.
That's
Chairman.
with the cap.
right, with the cap.
Right, so, Mr. Tweedy, that means that if you uncap it, that depending on how many people need the benefits for more than the biennium, it sort of piles up over time and grows, right?
Mr. Chairman, correct.
Okay. So it's at least hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, but we don't know how much more, right? Right, I got it. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think, especially with the amendments, that creates a little bit more uncertainty about where this all goes. It seems to me maybe the prudent course of action is to put the clause on it and sort of see how the fiscal impact develops and continue the discussion. It's okay.
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion about that? All right. So it's been moved and seconded. We put a clause on here to be able to continue talking about it, I guess. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Nobody opposed. Okay. Is there a motion on the bill?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We recommend the substitute as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Nobody's opposed. It's unanimous. Okay. So the last two bills on our docket, Senator Aird, see you arrived. You and Senator Pillion have competing policy approaches to the same problem. We've been, before you got here, we didn't hear your bill, but we were talking offline trying to figure out what to do about that.
So I believe, if I remember correctly, he's forming a commission and mine just gets right to the work.
Sort of. Yours kind of gives it to the governor's office and his gives it to the legislature. It's another way to look at it. So-
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I might, I think that, in my opinion, I'm not certain what fiscal costs might be associated with the commission, but what I will say is that the urgency of putting a framework in place to allow there to be guardrails for our public bodies is critical. Many of our entities are already using this technology, but without an agreed upon framework as to acceptable trade-offs for efficiencies that might be gained and or possible harm that might be done by certain tools utilized, I think we need to act sooner rather than later. My fear is that we continue to put this off. I've been trying to move us forward on the AI front for at least 3 to 4 years now. Starting first with just trying to do a basic assessment of what our entities are doing, our public bodies are doing in terms of using this technology, and we've yet to move in that direction. And so I'm hoping that we can start with the very basics of getting principles in place about technology that we're using, and certainly the commission can continue to look holistically and comprehensively at what else we need to do from there.
Okay. Why don't we hear from Senator Pillion about his approach and then try to figure this out?
I would agree with Senator Aird. I mean, I think both approaches, hers is urgent, mine creates a commission that puts the work back to the legislative body, while hers is a very direct and immediate approach. I think they could work
In tandem.
continue on.
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Marsden.
Question, is the CIO an appointed position, or is that civil service protected?
I don't know the answer to that.
Does
Does
Somebody
staff
here
know
know?
that? I mean, I would think a CIO is probably somebody the governor would pick. I would think.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the CIO is appointed by the governor.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
the
sir.
the concern I would have here, and I like the idea of Senator Pillions in terms of the panel. I recognize the immediacy of doing this, and some kind of a hybrid would, I think, be in order, because what I would hate to see is that one administration takes one view, the next administration takes another view on these kinds of things, and we would have the consistency of the group who are looking at this from any number of angles. That's just an observation. I don't know how that could be incorporated together. But
The only way I can just reiterate is that I think what I know about artificial intelligence and what I know about machine learning is it's not often politicized. It's really technical in nature. And what we're talking about here is making sure that we don't have things like algorithmic bias that exist in technology, that we have a level of accountability for the tools that our public bodies are using. And so this fear that we have a CIO that's going to somehow take a policy position that's counter to perhaps what the General Assembly may want, I have less of that fear when it comes to machine learning. And so again, I would just say that I think we need a foundation in place to ensure that as this technology is outpacing our action legislatively, we can ensure that no harm is being done by the agencies that are entrusted to us.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Senator Aird? Okay, so why don't we hear what Senator Pillion's approach is, and then we'll figure out what to do. If you mind, you want to do it from up here?
Sure. So this approach came from working with University of Virginia's Center for Politics students. They looked at what other states have done, and there's about a dozen states that have done the same policy, which creates a commission, that 20-member commission, 13 non-legislative, 6 legislative, and ex officio member, just to develop policies on studying the impact on AI on workforce and strategies to prevent discrimination through the use of AI, potential options for regulation and use of AI within the private sector, creating a definition for AI and developing ethical principles for the use of it, and considering guidelines and restrictions on the collection. So all that information will be brought together and then reported back to the legislature and the governor to further policy development.
Is there some reason you have equal Senate and House representation?
That same question was asked in the committee, and I would like to get
Well, I'm not sure if it's equal, but you got 2 and 4. It's kind of a weird number. It's usually like 3 and 5. Or,
I'm open for an amendment if that's what you so choose, but I also want to get this through the other body.
Yeah.
I concur.
Okay, substitute fixes that. Okay. Well, yeah. First of all, I think Mr. Kinderman, do you have a sub that like not only makes this a legislative commission instead of a gubernatorial commission? Is that right? Do you have a substitute that creates a legislative commission instead of a gubernatorial commission? I think we prepared one, didn't we?
That has not been prepared, Mr. Chairman, but we can.
Okay. Oh, you have it.
Concepts. Let me talk to you.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, what was talked about in concept from my notes is that you would in concept and potentially incorporate Senator Pillion's into Senator Aird's bill, leaving the direction regarding Senator Aird's bill. And then on the commission piece of it, it would become a legislative commission with reducing the number of individuals. The majority of the governor members would be gone, but the CIO would serve as an ex officio member. There would be parity between Senate and House membership, and it would be staffed by JCOTS with staff from both DLAS, House, and Senate IT providing support as well. That's what I had in my notes,
Right.
Mr. Chair.
The only thing I would ask of the now chief patron is that she would continue to work with the Center for Politics and move this bill forward.
Be happy to do so, Senator
Okay,
Pillen.
so I think,
But Chair and Senator Pillion, the one thing and Senator Aird, one thing I needed clarity on is there was a sunset provision for July 1, 2027, and I didn't mention that, and I wasn't sure where the notes were on that.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think the sunset needs to stay, but, so I think the idea is to take Pillion's commission with some amendments, roll it into Aird's bill, make you guys both chief co-patrons,
Yep. I agree to that.
and you're going to continue to work with him in the Center for Politics
Of
on
course.
this commission. And this is a recommendation of the full committee. We don't
Sure.
take real action in subcommittees here like we do up the other place.
I've learned.
Yeah, and, yeah, it's been moved and seconded, and, you know, in the next 2 days before this comes up in full, if you guys come up with something different, you can always bring that to our attention.
Thank you so much. I thank the committee.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. 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 Those opposed? Okay, so then we need a motion to recommend the bill for reporting. Okay, it's been recommended that the incorporated, amended, et cetera, bill that had a lot of surgery be recommended for reporting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? No.
The Aaron Pillion bill.
Right. Okay, I think that
Mr. Chairman?
completes our docket. Senator Evan.
Before we complete, Senator Bagby had Senate Bill 536 that was rolled into my bill on unemployment.
Yeah.
And there was a question, I was just speaking with one of the advocates in Senator Bagby about whether or not part of his wording could be incorporated without a significant fiscal impact into my bill. Do we have a moment to hear on that?
Sure.
Okay,
So, is there a motion to reconsider?
Move to reconsider the motion by which 536 was rolled into the,
No, it's not the roll, it's the.
the passage, the recommendation of passage of
Senator
Senate Bill
Evan, having
382.
voted on the prevailing side, Senator Evan moves that we reconsider our vote to recommend reporting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Nobody's opposed. Senator Bagby, what do you want us to do with Evan's bill?
I think you have a couple alternatives. I think you have three. Just looking at myself on the screen. I think you have three alternatives. One, what I would ask you to do is at very least to leave the bill out there. The second thing, send it to sub without a recommendation. The third thing would be just to pass it on. I'll tell you why. They're two different, they're seeking to do two totally different things. My bill is just a deferment for those individuals that don't have the ability to pay. And so if you roll mine into Senator Evans, my bill is essentially dead. And what it's getting at is essentially dead. Not essentially dead, it is dead. And so the deferment of payment is what we're trying to accomplish. It is not accomplished in Evans' bill. What he's trying to do is accomplish in this bill, but what I'm trying to do is not. And if you want to hear really quickly from the brains behind the operation.
Ms. O'Rourke from the Poverty Law Center could explain the differences or explain the conflicts.
Okay. Why don't we hear from, I'm sorry, why don't you come on up and explain the differences?
Good morning, Flannery O'Rourke, Virginia Poverty Law Center. So these are two different bills. What Senator Bagby's bill does is it provides a waiver for persons who are without fault in incurring the overpayment and cannot afford to pay it back. So it comes immediately upon creation of the overpayment. The VEC sends them an application for waiver, they complete it, and if they cannot afford to pay it back and they are without fault, it is immediately waived. So that means that VEC doesn't have to try to collect an overpayment where the person has no capacity to pay it back. In contrast, Senator Evans' bill gives the agency 5 years to collect on non-fraudulent overpayments, and then at that 5-year point, it writes it off or upon death or upon bankruptcy. They're very distinct. 40 other states have the waiver bill that we have proposed under Senator Bagby. And the cost should be low or negligible for Senator Bagby's bill. When the temporary overpayment waiver legislation was passed. The administrative cost was $250,000, and that was during the pandemic when there was something like 66,000 new non-fraudulent overpayments every quarter, whereas aside from the pandemic, it's always been less than 6,000 per quarter. The most recent quarter in Virginia, it was only about 1,000, and we would expect that the administrative costs to be even lower, therefore. And I think the final thing is that the temporary overpayment waiver legislation provided general funds to refill the unemployment trust fund, but we are not proposing that here. It will be a relatively low amount. We heard from VEC would be less than $4 million per year, and we would have that come out of pool charges, so taxes.
Quick question. This Senator Bagby's bill is an attempt to extend a policy that was, I think, enacted in, 2020 or 2021, pursuant to a bill by, I think,
Special session 2021.
It's Delegate Hudson, right?
Correct.
Okay. How does the commission determine what's equitable as opposed to what's good cause?
So the good cause, I think you're referring to Senator Evans' bill. The good cause only comes into play there for the permissive write-off that comes after 7 years. For equity and good conscience, it's defined within the bill, and it's for where the person would have to forego basic necessities in order to repay the overpayment. So it's essentially means tested.
Okay, so that's the process or the policy that VEC has adopted to implement what the statutory mandate is, which is equitable.
But it's also defined within the bill. They would have to forego necessities.
Okay. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Senator Eben.
I think it says in the bill that it should be contrary to equity and good conscience if requiring repayment of an overpayment would deprive the individual of the income required to pay for basic necessities, including shelter, food, medicine, childcare, and other essential living expense. So basically that we wouldn't take back claims that were paid if it's going to make them homeless or without food or something for medicine.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, April, can you let us know? Because I'm trying to look it up. I don't see a fiscal impact in the...
Mr. Chair,
LIS.
the reporting of the fiscal impact is that it's actually because it's not a process that they no longer have federal grants. They're not able to fund it from that, which I know is encouraged in the bill. They're reporting a fiscal impact of about $357,000 per year and 3 positions. She is correct. It is about $3.6 million that would come from the trust fund per year, but they are reporting that they are not able to accommodate it in current grants.
Sorry, they're not able to accommodate the 3.6 million in current...
No, the 357.
357 with current, okay. Got it. Okay. And we don't have the actual official FIS on this yet, right? I'm looking on DLS, I mean, on LIS, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's what the VEC has indicated. I don't think the FIS is out yet, but that's what they've indicated is their potential cost.
Okay. So I think Senator McPike moves and Senator Marsden seconds that we reconsider the motion by which we incorporated Senator Bagby's 536 into Senator Evans, what was it, 382? 382. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? No. So first of all, now we got Senator Bagby's bill before us. Senator McPike, do you have a motion?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I'd move we add the clause.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we add the clause to Senator Bagby's bill so we can continue to evaluate the fiscal impact of this because we don't have a FIS back yet. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Is there a motion on the underlying bill? Okay, it's been moved. Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we recommend reporting the bill as amended to the full committee. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? No. Now we're back to Senator Evans' bill. Thank you, Senator Bagby. Back to where we were. Yeah, Senator McPike moves and Marsden seconds that we recommend reporting Senator Evans' bill without Bagby Incorporated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. That's unanimous. I think that completes our docket, right, folks?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. The committee will rise. Thanks.